ladies and gentlemen, I'm so excited to talk to podcaster. She was the winner of season 26 of The Bachelor, host of Live, Laugh, Lives. It is Susie Evans. How are you?
Good. Thank you for having me on. I'm excited to be chatting with you. It's been so long.
I really appreciate your artistry on social media. You make quality stuff. Bachelor alumni a lot of times put a lot of slop out there. They're given an audience and they just put out slop. You're high quality. So what's life like been jumping into the podcast world?
It's been so good. I feel like we just launched, and watching the first episode back, I was like, oh my gosh, like I already felt kind of embarrassed, when you see your first something and you're like, oh my God, I can do so much better. And because we've been recording in studio for like 2 months, so we've been just like batching a ton of episodes. And so watching the first episode back, I was like, oh my God, I should have done a reshoot of that. But it's been really good. And I feel like I'm just finally starting to get more comfortable navigating conversations, because it can be uncomfortable at times. You're like talking about, sometimes wild stuff. So I feel like it's just been like a learning curve, and I already feel like I'm starting to get a little bit better, it's cool to see the progress.
Well, we're actually recording this with my Patreon audience watching live, and some of them have said they've loved it already. So I'm sure you've got like a built-in fan base excited for you. And, podcasting is not about perfection. Perfection's the enemy of good. So like, don't apologize for where it starts. It's where you're going. And so your show's about relationships gone awry. Tell me, what do you know about that?
I know a little something. I thankfully, none of the public relationships I've been in have been storylines on the show yet. Not my relationship, at least with these people. But back when I was in college, I dated I had the most wild experience. I dated a guy that lied about having cancer to me, and he lied about a lot of things, but that was like one of the biggest lies. He lied and cheated, and I was in this relationship for 2 years, and I always like look back and I'm like, it really shaped how I move forward, probably because of like trauma responses, and just even in general, like being able to trust, not just in dating but in people. Like I feel like I seemingly am very trusting, and I seemingly am very friendly with everybody, but I think I always like have a little bit of like an awareness that I'm like, okay, like I'm okay to let everyone think that I'm just like happy-go-lucky, but like I'm kind of got my eyes on everyone at every moment.
That's such a ladies love, that's why ladies love true crime. You're a built-in lawyer. You're ready to cross-examine a text message that doesn't line up. So with the cancer guy, were you like, how quick were you onto him? Did you just believe him wholeheartedly?
Well, for the first probably like 4 or 5 months, I was really confused because I just grew up in like a very healthy household, I would say. Like we didn't really lie. Like the rule growing up was like, if you don't lie, you won't be in trouble. So like if I did something wrong and I needed help, if I came to my parents, they're like, we're not going to like punish you for telling the truth. Like we're going to have a talk, but like you're not going to be grounded for the whole semester if you do something wrong or whatever. And so when I got into that first relationship in college, I did trust him blindly. But then like a couple months in, he was like, why do you keep saying that I'm 22? And I was like, wait, what? I thought you were 22. And he's like, no, I'm 25. And I was 17 when he met me. So I was 18 when we started dating. And I was like, I remember thinking, I was like, there's no way I would have like dated this guy if I knew that he was 25. And like genuinely, I really think he lied to me about everything, starting with his age. And then there were just all of these crazy lies throughout the whole relationship. And I slowly started to catch them, and he would always have like a reason or an excuse. And so when I finally went to break up with him, like the summer before going home, because I was like, I need to like get out of this situation. I couldn't escape it. I broke up with him before going home to Virginia. And then he showed up at my home in Virginia. He's from another country, but he was in St. Louis with me where we went to school. So like 13 hours driving. He drove through the night, showed up, and he like confessed to like, the reason I've been lying is because I have cancer and I don't want anyone to worry. And so I took him back and was like, oh my God, like I can't believe you have cancer. And it was like the most bizarre thing. But then even that felt weird. Like my mom said that when she found out about this and when I found out about it, I was like, this feels really weird. I was like, I don't know that I believe it, but I felt like I couldn't call him out because I'm like, who lies about that?
Right. Well, I mean, now we know people do. But if anyone wants to hear your full story, you've got it on your podcast. I want to make sure to push people over there.
Mhm.
Your relationship ending with Clayton Echard was the least problematic I've ever seen. It does not bode well for my channel when you just do it in such a healthy way. Because if it bleeds, it leads. And you guys did a good job. What was the conversation like about wanting to present or wanting to not, be messy when it comes to, like, you guys went on Off the Vine and you just
Mhm.
you were so graceful for each other. What was that all about?
I think we genuinely just really cared about each other. I think we had been through so much. Um, you know, that saying like hurt people hurt people. I think we both very easily could have done different podcasts and said a lot of like really nasty things about each other, even though like neither of us are really nasty people, I don't think. But I think when you go through like the public ridicule, just of being on The Bachelor, ending up together, the way the show went, it was like very controversial. Like there was a lot of like hate, and I think we both were very hurt. And thankfully, instead of like turning that on each other and being like, okay, well, I'm gonna get ahead of this narrative and I'm gonna put a better narrative out for myself. Like, I don't think either one of us had that. It was more so like we both have been affected. And I think I also felt like Clayton had been affected so horribly by the media that it was like, how can we protect each other in this? And yeah, we just decided that a joint podcast would make the most sense. Obviously, we both very much trusted Caitlin. She'd been so supportive and so like mental health positive for both of us and gave us a lot of great advice. So we were like, let's do the interview with her. We don't think she's going to do anything to like pit us against each other or ask inappropriate questions. And yeah, I think it came from a place of like we had both felt so much pain through the experience that it was like, okay, how can we do this without like just making this worse or giving more ammunition for people to throw back at us.
Well, like you said, if you did interviews separately, it then becomes like a he said, she said.
Mhm.
So like with Jen and Devin, I mean, their situation's so toxic. But what it really comes down to is she shared her story. He never really shared his. And it got messy, and it got so messy so fast. The
Yeah.
show loves it. They're not there to protect anybody. Have you followed that mess? I mean, it's the exact opposite of the way you guys handled yours.
I know. I was just saying the other day, I didn't watch the video. I've just been so busy, but I saw what was happening. I saw that like some texts were like actually a lot of texts were released. I didn't get a chance to like look at them or like read them, but I know that some of them probably shouldn't have been shared. Um, I think it would have been nice if he had done a podcast. I feel like a podcast is such a great platform or come to somebody like, I mean, at least we had Caitlin as a resource where it was like, we trust her. She has a good platform. She's been through this before. She kind of like guided us where when I saw this happen with Devin, as soon as I saw the text messages, I was like, oh no, just because I'm like, as soon as you start releasing like private details, like even if it does help you build a case or help you people see your perspective, it's gonna rub people the wrong way. So even if his intention was not to like, you know, be negative towards Jen or whatever it is, like even if that intention wasn't there, I was like, just from a PR perspective, and I'm no expert, but I'm like, as soon as you release personal info, I'm like, it's gonna hurt the case.
I totally agree. If he even maybe like I said, like gave those texts to Caitlin before a conversation, and then they could talk about him, it would have been better. But
Yeah.
because he did have I believe he was a little mischaracterized. There was definitely more to the story, and there always is. But with your case, you could have dunked on Clayton, and you could have. There was an audience just ready to go. So I commend you for not taking that bait that is low hanging fruit that's there
Mhm.
for you.
Yeah, thank you. I think so something that I've noticed in reality TV, which like no shade or judgment, but a little shade and judgment, I guess, is that I just feel like when you build a brand off of like the downfall of somebody else, like what does that do for you? Like what happens when that person makes their comeback? What happens when that person grows and becomes a better human? Also, are you giving people the room to grow? But I think so much of reality TV is like at the end of a season, it's like, here's the bad guy, and here's why we're choosing the next person, and we're going to uplift them. And then it's like, okay, well, their whole story now is built off of like the downfall of somebody. And that's like not really ground to stand on. Like there's so much more to people than what somebody has done to them or how they've been dumped. Like, I don't know. I don't think that that's like a great way to build for yourself. And it just also, I think I'm so sensitive that I do think I look back at what Clayton went through, and in the time I was like, this is a lot. This is really heavy. But even more so now, I'm like, I literally am like, thank God he was able to get through that because it was really a lot that he went through.
I think both of your stories have aged really well. Having dealt with someone lie to your face about cancer and things like that, did that lead you to believe Clayton with his Laura Owen story, or were you skeptical? Was there any thought of, oh my gosh, I can't necessarily defend him. What if this is true? Like, where were you at with that? Because you were one of the only people that really supported him. And again, another example, Susie, where I'm like, man, you've gone for the sort of more challenging thing. You could have just stayed silent.
I think that, well, thank you. I think there was a moment in time, and actually, so Clayton and I have talked about this, and we both thought, like, well, what if it does come back and she's actually really pregnant? Like, what if the 1 in 1 million chance that this pregnancy was conceived in this way that she's claiming it was? Like, or if she did something to manipulate that. And we were like, what if? And I had that thought. I was like, because if I do say something, and even if I still like, I don't know what it is. I just really believed Clayton. Like, I never, ever, ever knew him as somebody that like fabricated the truth, manipulated like the truth, or lied. Like, he never, in our whole relationship, he never lied. He was like sometimes honest to a fault. And that was like a joke we had where I was like, okay, Clayton, like, I don't need to know everything you're thinking. Like, you can keep some thoughts in your head. But so I never had any issues with trust with him. Like, there was never, and we went through the cheating scandal very early on in our relationship, and he was very like forthcoming with any information and like his location service, like everything. He had nothing to hide. And I do kind of feel like some people are just either like tell the truth, or they lie, or they lie a little bit, and like you kind of can sense that in people, or you have experiences that are like, oh well, like even with my best friends, like sometimes she kind of like stretches the truth a little bit, and she like tells like really exaggerated stories. And not to say that I wouldn't believe her, but with Clayton, I'm like, I've never known him to not tell the truth, and I don't think he'd have any reason to not tell the truth. A paternity test is going to tell the truth, so why would he lie about this? And but there was a little sense of fear at one point where I was like, dang, like this is, you never know. And I think he had this, it's funny because he's like, even though I was there and knew what happened, he's like, I still had that same fear of like, well, what if the 1 in 1 millionth chance that this is, but I'm glad I did. And I think maybe because I had a closer relationship with him, I did have like more faith in him. And that gave me the ground to stand on, where I was like, okay, I can put myself out there and, talk about this and feel comfortable with this.
Yeah, it's been very interesting seeing going through all the emotions, having obviously met him, and then also the other victims, and also their wives and girlfriends. I've had people come up and hug me because of our audience has been able to really change, the perception of them from their friends and families. Not everyone had the platform Clayton did and the support that he did. Can you believe she's being investigated by county prosecutors? Are you caught up to date with it? I mean, she might get tried in a criminal trial.
I hope she does. I mean, I think unfortunately the justice system has failed a lot of these men previously. And I hope the justice system doesn't fail them in this, because I think what she's done is, I mean, it obviously is criminal. Again, like, people have no idea the pain and like the anxiety that you feel when people are talking about you online, whether it's like, even if it's good, like there's a little bit of like anxiety that comes with that too, because even if there's good, there's always going to be bad. But when it's bad, like it is so heavy and painful. And like for her to put Clayton through that, publicly, is so wild. And I'm like, he's already been through so much. And then when you think about the other people that she's done this to, whether or not it was, as obviously it wasn't as public as Clayton's story, but I'm like, those are people that have to face this in their community. Those are people that people just have to take their word for it. And when you Google them or you find their court cases or whatever, like it just puts like a taint on your name, and it's like she shouldn't be able to get away with that, and nobody should.
Yeah, we'll have to see how it all plays out. It's fascinating. The last question I want to ask you is, you've probably learned, about the Bachelor audience from your relationship with Clayton, and you kept your last Bachelor relationship under wraps. What has that felt like to have some ownership over your relationship that maybe other people don't know about? And did that make you were you more protective because it was a Bachelor relationship, or was it like walk me through that if you could?
Yeah. So obviously with Clayton, I think we tried to handle things as best we could. But even still, like when eventually I started doing podcasts again, going and helping co-hosts or doing a little guest appearance here and there, and people would be curious and they would ask. And I feel like I really tried to like keep my lips sealed on a lot of like on reasons why we broke up, because I'm like, that's the type of stuff that I'm like, it doesn't need to be out in the public because it follows you around. And unfortunately, there was a Chipotle comment that I made on a podcast. Well, and I didn't even say Clayton's name, I don't think. I don't remember exactly, but I'm like, I don't even think I said it was Clayton. I think it was like, he was like, well, what would you look for a future boyfriend that a past boyfriend didn't have? And I said something, and that person I think was the one that was like, could it have been Chipotle or something like that? And it has followed and lingered on the internet for years now. And me and Clayton talked about this recently as well. And we were laughing about it, and he's got a good sense of humor about it. But I'm like, I actually hate that has like stuck around and lingered, and it's just like unkind, and like I should have never even like said anything, because people take it and run with it, and it's not like a full picture or like a clear crystal ball, like look into what our relationship was. And so I think this last breakup, I think it's also like more complicated as well, because like it's similar to when we got into the relationship with me and Justin. We were trying to be more private when we got into the relationship, because we were like, well, we are such good friends. We have a friend group. Obviously people are watching, but if we aren't compatible and we tell people we're dating, then there's going to be all this criticism, and it's going to be a whole, like everyone's going to demand answers. So we were like, let's just like try dating privately. And then when we're ready, we'll tell people. And then similarly, when we broke up, it was like, okay, like, do we really want to break up? Is this something we really want? Because once we say it's true, then people are going to hold us to that as well. And there's no bad blood. There's no like cheating or lying or anything like that. There's nothing like crazy that happened in our relationship. And it's like, I don't know, it's been really complicated because you don't want to say too much. And like we tried to avoid saying anything publicly for so long. And we both were caught off guard in different interviews at different times. And it was like, finally we're like, okay, we just have to like put it out there, because obviously people know. But I just like sometimes I'm like, I don't want to say anything. Not necessarily like, obviously we've acknowledged we're broken up, but I'm like, I don't want to like give people like any bit of information, because then it like they take it and they make their own narrative, and then it like can get put on somebody. And we both have seen that and are like trying to protect each other from that, I guess. So I think that's probably why people think it's so weird, and I totally get it. We both actually were like, we get it. We always send each other these memes of people that are like making fun of YouTubers that break up and then do like a joint video, and they're like, we're still friends though, and we're on good terms. And we think it's so funny because that's us, and we're like, oh, we're literally those people, but we don't. It's like there's no rule book on how to handle this, and it's really
there's
hard.
a commodity there. There's a currency, which is people want happiness for you, but it's also people are needy, and it's their own gossip. And this is why I love Chapel Roan, because she's telling her audience, like, I don't know you guys shit. You get good music out of me, whatever. You don't owe your audience anything. They don't, sure, like if they want to support you and follow you, but they're getting their own tea out of it. So I like that you guys didn't take the bait and give people this sort of neediness. Like, you do what you need to do. And when your currency becomes every relationship and this and that, then when you're in a happy relationship, people aren't going to value that. You know what I mean? So like, I think you're doing the right thing. And anyway, I'm really happy you could stop by today. I want everyone who's listening to walk over to your podcast. You're already on your app. It's called Live, Laugh, Lies. listen to a couple episodes and then give her a nice 5-star review. It's the new subscribers is the best way to rise in the charts. And come back anytime you want to talk about anything. We love hearing from you. I wish you nothing but the best here.
Thanks, Dave. Thank you for having me on. I hope you're doing great and appreciate the opportunity to shout out my podcast.
Of course. Have a good one.
Thanks.